Welcome to the podcast, A Drink with Derek. Follow comedian Derek Richards on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and don't forget to subscribe to his YouTube channel and watch all episodes of the podcast. Now grab a drink and join your host, Derek Richards.
It's a pretty interesting year so far, though, man. Had some news back in April. Tiger Woods won his first Masters for the first time. Had a comeback. Yeah. I really don't give a shit. I don't. The only reason I'm even bringing this up is that it upsets me that I saw this information on ESPN. When there's a perfectly good golf channel that you can put golf shit on. It's calling me crazy. But when I watch ESPN, I watch it because I'm going to see sports highlights. I might lose a few here, but golf's not a sport. I'm going to put it out there right now. Right? It's not. And the main reason it's not a sport, this is a big one, is because you can't play fucking defense. That's why it's not a sport, right? Okay? Don't get me wrong, like the golfers were jousting each other hole to hole. I'm like, oh fuck, this looks interesting. Stick around. Got horses now? Instead of a caddy, he's more like a squire, like, fetch me my 9-iron. It's like, yes, my lord. He doesn't take a deal shit. And don't get me wrong either, man. Like Tiger Woods, I have a lot of respect for him. You know, he's the best. He's the best at that activity. You should be proud of him, you know? But I also think he's a bit of an idiot, right? And the main reason I think he's a dum-dum, I don't know if you guys remember this, but at the height of his golfing career, he injured his knee so badly that he needed surgery. And everybody's making a big deal about it. Is it going to be okay? Will he recover? Will he ever golf again? Like, yo, November 18th, 1985, Joe Theismann had his leg snapped like a dry autumn twig. The injury was so severe he had to retire from football. He never played again. To this day, it's still one of the most gruesome injuries in NFL history. But you know what? He can still fucking golf. No problem. And he's out there golfing with 1985 surgery like a fucking pirate. Just I think Tiger's gonna be okay. Pull through. And I started thinking about it even further. I'm like, how the hell do you even hurt your knee that badly in the first place from playing golf, you know? And I read further, here's the thing, Tiger didn't injure his knee while he was playing golf. He actually injured it while he was training with Navy SEALs. Like, dude, you're a golfer. Settle down. What are you doing? I'm just saying, like, the only time you should be training with Navy SEALs is if you're a fucking Navy SEAL. Doing Navy SEAL shit. That's my opinion. Right? Not to mention Tiger Woods' biggest rival throughout his entire career has been Phil Mickelson. Yeah. You know, the guy doing psoriatic arthritis commercials? So Tiger Woods is trying to push his body to the limits of its physical capabilities, like he's doing squats with a telephone pole on his back and full scuba gear blowing out his knee. Meanwhile, Phil Mickelson's like, every day's a pickle day. Tiger could have just done CrossFit a couple times a week, you fucking dope.
What you just saw there was my guest live on stage. He is here with me now, performing at the, as we record this, he's at the Stratosphere in Las Vegas at the LA Comedy Club. I'm here in Vegas as well. Henderson, technically, so I'm on the other side of town, but he is the never-ending tour. Good friend of mine, comedian Patrick Garrity, who normally I say where you're from, but you're really not from anywhere, and we'll get to that. I mean, we're all from someplace, but I mean, you are the quintessential road dog, and I'm happy that we were able to get you pinned down here and get a chance to talk, man. How you doing, buddy?
Dude, I'm happy to be here, bro. Happy to be back on stage. Happy to be working, and thanks so much for having me on your podcast. Dude. I really appreciate it, man.
Oh man, it's I've been looking forward to this. I can ask a couple quick questions here. Is what I call the get to know our guest segment.
Sure.
Okay, so here we go. How long do you have to leave your Christmas lights on before you're considered white trash?
Ooh, like after Christmas, I'd
Yeah.
say once you get to like January 10th, then
Okay.
it's like, like you got, because I mean, we have to like work, and like I'm a procrastinator like that as well. So I mean, I'd say like January 10th, like that's a third of the month into, the new year. Like it's time to take the shit down,
Or just turn it off.
just turn it off. Yeah. There you go.
Okay, I know you're a monster hockey fan, huge Washington Capitals fan.
Yeah.
What scares you more, a pissed off Alexander Ovechkin or a pissed off girlfriend?
Oh, I would say it pissed off Alex Ovechkin, man. I mean, that's like he's 230 pounds, like 6'3", like that's terrifying.
He's
On
a beast.
skates,
Well, see, now I would only say the girlfriend, because if you're on the ice and Ovechkin starts beating the crap out of you, it'll last about 20, 30 seconds, and then the refs and everybody will pull him off of you. A girlfriend, you got to wait for the cops to show up. She's throwing pots and pans, knives, all that other shit. So to me, it's the girlfriend.
Wrong kind of girlfriend, then, man. Like, get her out the house, man. Fucking no. Nope.
Now, final question. You're at a strip club, getting a lap dance. The place gets raided by the cops. Do you A, finish the lap dance, B, throw her off your lap and run for the door, or C, ride it out and have her dance for you one more time?
Oh, ride it out, dance one more time.
See?
There anyway.
That's the Patrick Garrity I know.
I'm almost 40, man. Like, I'm not gonna be running like looking like assholes. It's fucking, shit.
You're like, it's only the cops, whatever.
Right, yeah. Not sprinting anywhere. Not with you. Knees.
You are a thrill seeker. You are the quintessential road dog. And I've known you from when I was living down in Florida, and you were in Orlando. That was your home base at the time.
Since I first started, man. You know me for 20 years, Belly. This is my 20th year. Yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah.
That is absolutely insane. Where is, do you have any kind of a home that you call now? I mean, during the pandemic, where were you staying?
No, this is my 20th year in stand up, and my never ending tour started back, I want to say like 2009, I think. So 2000. So this is my 12th year. This will be my 12th year of the never ending tour, which means no home, no residence. I just tour nonstop around the country. And the way I'm able to do that is like, because I work all over the country, but on my off days, like I got a network of people that you can usually like crash on a couch or a futon, air mattress, or spare bedroom or something. And then you're not a nuisance. You're only staying there for a couple of days. But pandemic changed all that shit. Like this year was just catastrophic. So when the pandemic happened, I was actually going from Greensboro, North Carolina to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And I was going to stay a couple of days with a friend of mine in Maryland. That's where I grew up, and with a friend of mine that I've known since middle school. And she had two roommates. She had a upstairs roommate named Rob, and then a downstairs roommate named Chung, this Korean dude. And the first week I was staying there, they're like, everything when you're like, you could stay, and we know everything, you got no place else to go and shit. And then I'm sleeping on the couch in the living room, and then Chung, he has a whole basement downstairs. That's his apartment. He's like, yo, PG, man, I got a futon downstairs. If you want to crash down there, it's it's more more secure and like not as much shit going on. And I just met this guy, I known him a week, and I was like, bro, I don't want to invade your space. That's your spot. He's like, no, come on down, bro. Me and this guy end up becoming like best friends, like brother. Like after 3 weeks, it's just like I'm like, dude, I'm like 13-year-old me. This is a dream come true. It's like a nonstop sleepover. We're doing drugs, playing video games. It's the best. And I'm like, dude, I go, if it wasn't for the crippling financial fucking devastation, I was like, this would be like the best time of my life. And he's like smoking a bong, and he goes, man, I feel kind of bad because internally, I hope you get more shows canceled so you have to stay longer. Yeah, and I just saw him again at Thanksgiving. We had a blast, dude. This guy, and when I finally left after 2 months, I was heading out west, and he's like, man, I never had a brother before, but if I did, I'm pretty sure that's what it would have been like. So me and this guy are like, that's one of the coolest things about the pandemic. Like, if the pandemic never happened, he'd just be more of an acquaintance to me. But now he's like, I'm gonna know this dude the rest of my life. He's like that good of a guy, you know, where you just meet somebody, you're like, all right, this is my homie right here, you know.
That is so cool. Well, people should follow you on. Well, people need to follow you on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Instagram especially, because your pictures all the time are awesome. It's usually and what people need to know about Patrick Garrity is that you drive a Honda CRV, correct?
Actually, I retired. That one's retired.
That one's retired.
It's retired. I got a 2004 Xterra. So that's the new one. I just had it painted white, so I'm starting all over with a brand new car. It's the first time I've ever owned a vehicle that has been made in the 2000s, so that's exciting for me. But yeah, like after every show, so my Instagram is basically like after every show, everybody sign my car. This is actually the third car that I've had to have people sign it. The first one was a 94 Honda Accord. I had 387,000 miles on it. I had it for 6 years from since the Never Ending Tour started. So like 2010 to 2016. And then I wrecked it. I started having people sign it in 2015. And then I hit a deer in Iowa and totaled it. And then I had to put up a GoFundMe because I had no money. And then my fans actually bought me that CRV. I was able to raise almost $4,000 in less than a week because all the people that signed the Honda Accord were like, man, we want to keep the tour going, you know, get a new car, get it painted white and have other people sign it. So that's kind of like my thing. Like, I'm not a big selfie guy. Like, I think you're probably pretty similar too. Like, you know, there's a lot of comics that are more introverts, you know, and that's how I am. I like when people come out to see me, like, it's kind of overwhelming. So I started having people sign the car because it's like, the car kind of takes attention away from me and creates kind of like an assembly line. Like, people go sign the car, then they come see me. So my Instagram is mostly just people signing my car. Like, I make it more about the fans than myself. And I think that's like cool because now they feel like they're a part of the journey, which they are, you know?
I think that's super cool. Well, I was lucky to be, I think, probably one of the first like 25 people to sign car number 2.
You signed it right on that. I remember what you said, may the road rise up to meet you.
Yes.
I think meet or greet. May the
road rise up to meet you. That was an old Irish saying. And so now keep in mind, this car is painted white. I'm going to paint the picture. And for people that are watching this or listening, go on Patrick's Instagram. You'll see the car. The car sticks out. And somebody stole your car, you said, this past July. That's like stealing the Batmobile. Yeah, who the hell takes a white SUV with about 5,000 to 10,000 signatures on it?
With no AC and no door handle on the inside. So it's just like,
there's no AC and no door handle either?
No, not yet. So to open it, you got to roll down the window and then you have to reach out and then open the door like an asshole. So yeah, like, and here's the thing too, is just like unanimously 2020 has been like the worst year of everybody's life. Like, we can all so I'm taking my licks like everybody else. And I'm in LA at the time, hanging out with my buddy. And then I go get breakfast and my car's gone. And I'm looking at the curb. I'm like, I know this isn't parked illegally. And I'm like, I'm in my head, I'm like, there's no way. Like, I'm calling the toll place. I'm like, did you guys and it's like, they're like, nope. So now I figure out that it's stolen. So I had I had most of my stuff taken out, but I'd say about a third of my possessions were in the car. They were like my nice pair of shoes that I wear on stage were stolen. Some of my clothes, about 33% of my shit was taken. And then they found and then I was in LA for like a week. And then I had a buddy of mine, the car that I got now, he was in Reno and he's like, man, I got this 2004 Xterra. It was in an accident, but if you pay for the parts to get it fixed up, there's not that much to put into it. He's like, he basically gave me this car. He's like, but you just got to be able to get to Reno. So I had a friend of mine. She drove out from Tucson all the way to LA to pick me up, and then drove me back to Tucson, and then was going to drive me to Reno to get this car. Like, that's how awesome a person she is. But as soon as we get back to Tucson, they're like, hey, found your car. So then we had to go all the way back to LA, pick up the car from and I had to pay like $500 to get out of the impound. Dude, it was a nightmare, bro. It was just like such unnecessary bullshit. I'm just like, man, I'm like, why? What? Like, it was just so frustrating, you know? And
so did they ever find out? Did they ever catch the guy who did it? They never catch whoever steals a car. They don't give a shit. They could, that's not on their priority list.
You know, like, they don't give a shit.
Yeah. I
So
hope
yeah,
I hope if whoever is watching this, if you're the one who stole Patrick Garrity's car, I hope COVID crawls in your ass and
yeah.
eats your intestines just a little bit every day until you just start shitting inside your stomach. How's that? How's that for a little
No,
Irish rage?
yeah, that's like in like a little Irish hymn there. Here you go. Take that. Suck on that bit.
Well, what motivates you to be on the road? Because a lot of guys that have been in the business for a long time look forward to the time where they're not on the road, where they like being back at home. So what motivates you to keep this train going?
So, a little while back, I came up with this idea that's just like, and I think we all go through those positions where we got our highs and lows, and I think all comics have to deal with depression because there's a lot of just because, like, you're entertaining a lot of people, but there's also a lot of isolation in like hotel rooms and stuff, and like I'm very aware of like my abilities, like I see people with comedy specials, and I'm like, like I could have had a comedy special 10 years ago, like both of us, like with like I know my materials, that the originality, like my abilities or whatever. But now after being on the road this long, nonstop around the tour, I came up with this idea. So I started a Patreon. You're aware of Patreon?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my idea for Patreon is like I want to get 100,000 subscribers. Everybody subscribing for just $1. So that's $100,000 a month. 90,000 because Patreon takes 10%. And then I'm going to do my never-ending tour around the country like I've been doing for the past 12 years. But the thing is, I'm going to bring 3 different comedians on the tour with me each month. And there's going to be no headliner. We're all going to split the time, kind of like Kings of Comedy or Blue Collar. So it's just like,
Sure.
Right. And then I'm going to pay each comic 25 grand for that month. That way, like, especially this will be really beneficial, especially for comics that have families, like I'm single, no wife, no kids, and I'm still drowning. I could not fucking imagine how difficult this job would be if I had even one kid, so it's just like, I want to change the landscape of comedy a little bit. Like we're all killing ourselves and busting our asses just to try to get like a 5-minute set on Conan or The Late Show or whatever. And we have to do 5 minutes of watered down material. And then nobody even remembers your name because there's a new comic next week and who gives a shit. Like the Tonight Show was a great credit back in 1987 when there were 6 fucking channels and half the population was watching that particular channel at that particular time. I can tell you after 20 years of being in this business as a comic, not all of us are trying to be Eddie Murphy or Chris Rock or whatever. We just want to pay our bills. We just want to just entertain and do our shit. So like with this, like I think like having experience of a tour, like I'll like as a comic, I would have you on the tour. So I give you a whole month of work, right? We just work the clubs we would normally work, but we're working together, and you, me, and 2 other great comics. And then we switch the rotation every show. So one show I'll host, and then you go up third, and then a comic, and then another show you'll close, another show you'll host, and then like we keep rotating. And then at the end
That's
of
a
the month,
great idea.
yeah, I write you a check for 25 grand. That way you're not fucking killing yourself and working these shitty casinos where they don't even turn the fucking TVs off in the upper peninsula of Michigan. So it's just like, oh, you know what I'm saying? Oh, if you're not enjoying my show, here, check out the Red Wings game here in the background. Like I just like, and just giving a comic some breathing room, like will allow you to create and be able to like, oh man, I can actually fucking relax a little bit. I don't have to like, and it releases that log jam. There's only so many clubs and so many weeks a year, and there's all I always tell people, I was like, you're like, well, what's comedy like? I'm like, when you're not famous, it's basically like being a fucking baby bird. Like, who wants Paducah, Kentucky on a Tuesday? I want it. You're like, there you go, you fuck. You're like, a hotel? Like, no. Pay for your own hotel, you piece of shit. So it's like you and I started before social media. Before when I started, all you had to do was be funny. That's not the case now. It's like how many followers you got, like blah blah blah. There's like these YouTube stars and this and that shit. So with this idea, like there's no more Last Comic Standing. You know what I'm saying? That show has ended.
Right.
And here's the thing, like I'm so sick of shows that are like competitions. With my idea, this is a collaboration. We got to work together. My fans find out about you. Your fans find out about me. This comics fans find about you. Like everybody is fine. Like it's all a mixture. Then like we all have fun. We all do a podcast once a week, and we interact with fans at different parts of the country, whatever city we're in. It's just I just as a whole, I think it's a great idea. It's just like and because like this is an idea easily that I could pitch to Netflix. Like, oh, it's going to be a month long with 4 comics on the road, and each month will be a new rotation of 3 comics. But if it's created by a network, that means it could be canceled. However, with Patreon, it's directly from the fans right to the artists. So there's no network that could cancel this shit. That way my never ending tour literally becomes never ending. When I'm finally old and ready to hang this shit up, I pass it down to the next generation, like the Tonight Show was. And then somebody else could be the Dread Pirate Roberts for the next fucking 20 years.
Well, I think what's a great idea with this is that even if you went ahead and put together your own documentary and just got your road footage over the course of time and just started putting stuff out, and then you can put it on Amazon or Amazon Prime yourself. And just have that and have the content there, because Amazon will allow you to do something like that. So you don't even need to pitch it to somebody like a Netflix or a Hulu, because I think that's a great idea. Now, have you started the Patreon thing yet or no?
I have. I got about 110 subscribers. But like I said, this year was so catastrophic. Like before, I really do, like if you go to YouTube, like if some of my videos on there are actually videos for me on the road, talk about what the road is like and booking shows. I had what is it? I think you remember this. Harvey's in Portland, Oregon.
Oh yeah,
for $1,200. So I made a whole video about like them fucking me over and giving me the runaround for an entire month, and then what I had to do to go get my money. You know, long story short, I had to put the guy's fucking phone number on Facebook, and then all my fans and friends and shit harassed this piece of shit, and then finally I got my money. Like after a month of him dicking me around. As soon as his phone started blowing up with all my fans, he's like, "Oh, we'll get you the money." I'm like, "Oh, magically, you have the $1,200 now." It's insane. And
See, you know
the same thing.
Yeah, well, you know it's so funny, and I want to talk about that for a second. But for the Patreon thing, where do people go to subscribe for this? They go to Patreon, and then what do they type in? Where do they click? Patrick Garrity, Never Ending Tour. What do they do?
Just my name. So you just go to you can download the app from the store. Just download Patreon. And then you just look up my name, Patrick Garrity, Garrity, and then all like $1. That's the main thing too. Is like I'm not asking for anything but $1. I want to show people just how little it takes to make something really awesome. You know, it's like everybody collaborates on one thing. You know.
Well, yeah, and even over the course of a year, it's if somebody gave $5, that's $60. That's like that's like dinner for two at Chili's.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is way more altruistic and beneficial to society than getting shitty cheese sticks and fajitas. So I think go to Patreon and donate to this.
And my whole concept is just like all I want to entertain people like every other comic does. We just like that's our main goal. And I think the concept is like, well, how do you put together a killer show? Easy. Put all killers on the show. And after being in this business for 20 years, like I know who the killers are. Like we all like if you work at any job for 10 years, like you know who the good workers are and who sucks and who's like, you know. So and like I don't even want I want comics that I've never heard of being on the show just because they were recommended by comics that are killers. So like that's how you get on the tour. Is like it doesn't matter how many fucking YouTube views you have or who your agency is. It matters if you're a fucking good comic, you can do the time, and you're a killer, and you're not an asshole. That's it. Those are requirements.
I think it's a brilliant idea. I think it's a really, really cool idea. It's got I think it's got legs. I think it has a lot of potential for much more down the road that beyond the Patreon thing. But yeah, if people can donate to that, I think it's. Yeah, like you said, it's your fans feeling like they can be a part of something. And if they donate $1 a month, it's $1 a month. That's $12 over the course of a year. So it's like, yeah. Now, one of the questions I was going to ask you was the best I got fucked on a gig story. But you mentioned the Harvey's thing in Portland. Is that the worst? Is that the worst one? Because what happened was, the video you did, is it still up on YouTube? Is it on your YouTube channel?
Yep.
Because you did this video, and here's the thing. In this business, for people that are watching this that aren't familiar with what we have to deal with, once in a while, somebody will screw you over on a gig, and then a comedian will go on Facebook or go on Instagram, whatever, and they have some rant, and they just do some tirade where it's just this, profanity-laden just missive that accomplishes nothing. You actually put production value behind this video about you getting screwed over by Harvey's Comedy Club in Portland, Oregon. And I encourage people to go on YouTube and I don't know what it's searched under. Is it under Harvey's on your YouTube channel?
I think it's Never Ending Tour, like episode 9 is
okay.
I was doing like episodes of the before all this shit happened. But like yeah, I'd say that was definitely the big, because the way I work is like, some of my shows I'll do one-nighters. You take what you can get. I'll do like 3 different one-nighters in 3 different cities, and I'll make maybe like $700 total for that week, minus 300 in gas or whatever the fuck it is. And then, but I'll have at least like one gig that I call like my anchor,
right.
Like this month I'm working LA Comedy Club. This is the most lucrative week I'm going to have this entire month,
Good.
And then, so that was Harvey's back in September of 2018. So then, and that was my nut for that month. And then they dicked me around for the entire month. So what I first did was I kind of like, send a shot across the bow, kind of like, hey guys, I put on Facebook, I was like, hey guys, quick question. How long would it take for you to lose your shit after a club bounced a check on you for $1,200? Then I put in parentheses, it's been 4 weeks for me. Now they're not returning my calls or anything. And then I just got a slew of like, all the comments, like, who is it? What club is it? Like, they're like, now I have everybody's attention. Right. And then the following week is when I finally was like, okay, here's the guy's number. So now that I had everybody's attention, they were like, and then everybody got my money back for me.
Well, that video you produced was very methodical. It was very well thought out. It was based on fact. You didn't lose your shit at any point in that video. Yeah. And after you sent me that video, I had forwarded that thing to about, I'd say 50 comics, and they were laughing their ass off. They're like, this guy is the most measured maniac that I've ever seen. No, I mean, tons and tons of kudos and compliments to you for just literally putting together a video that was just very fact-based.
Yeah, I mean, and I gave them every opportunity, not to do it. And again, I just think it's one of those things where they know I lived out of my car, and they're like, well, fuck this guy, And the way the guy, and I even stated in the video, because when I was like, because this guy Doug was the one that was supposed to pay me the money, and I was dealing with Jeff, and I didn't even hear Doug's name until I was like, I hit up Jeff, like, yo, the check bounce. He's like, oh, I'll talk to Doug. I'm like, who the fuck is Doug? I've never even heard of this guy. He's like the brother of the guy that manages the room, right?
Right.
And I'm like, and then it's like Doug will pay you, and then finally at the end, I'm like, I'm starting to feel like Charlie Brown trying to kick the football here. I was like, what's Doug's number? Because clearly he's not getting the message when you tell him he needs to pay me. I'm like, so is Doug just stupid or just an incompetent piece of shit? Or both, And then, so I get Doug's number through other means. Like I got it through another comic, and then I call him, and he's surprised I have his number. He's like, "Oh yeah, Patrick, I know you got the issue with the check." I'm like, "Yeah, man." I was like, "I need my money ASAP." I was like, "I got car repairs." He's like, "Well, I can give you a partial payment out of good faith." I'm like, "Partial payment?" I'm like, "It's been over a month. This is bullshit." He's like, "You can be civilized, respectful, or you just get it when you get it." And that's really what pissed me off. It's not just that like the check bounce. It's how indignant he was. When motherfucker, you owe me money. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, this is like I'm an asshole for asking for what I got paid. You know what I'm saying? I'm like,
yeah, the crime was bad enough, but then the follow up about them being so dismissive and like you're the bad guy.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what really pissed me off about it. And I was like, well, I have no qualms about fucking posting your shit online, asshole. So I was like that. So I posted his number on Facebook, and that.
Dude, I loved it. I think that video is absolutely brilliant. Anybody in the entertainment business and people not in the entertainment business, if you want to put together a video when somebody screws you over, whether it's a manager at work or somebody somewhere that fucked you over on something, people need to watch this video and go, okay, there's a civilized way to handle this and get my point across without sounding like a complete lunatic. So
yeah, I mean, it was a month of getting dicked around. I was like, everybody has their breaking point, man.
Yeah, it's exactly. That's a great way to put it. I mean, and you did the right thing. Like you're reading the text messages on the video that you sent to these guys.
I would, and also like I wanted it to be handled in a reasonable manner because I wanted to come back. I was like if you pay me, like I'll come. Like let's continue to work a relationship. And that's not the guy was like, oh, you just get it when you get it. Like he thinks I really need to come back there. I'm like, motherfucker, I don't need your shit. been doing this 20 years, dude. Like, I don't need to work your fucking room. Fuck your $1,200, but you're gonna pay me that $1,200 that you owe me.
But I'm gonna get that $1,200. It's gonna be. I'm gonna take your sign down. I'm gonna come in. I'm gonna start unscrewing your televisions. I'm gonna figure something out. I'm gonna get my $1,200.
I was like, if you do not pay me money, because I had fans, because I put up a thing. They're like they will pay for a plane ticket to fly me out there to go demand cash. I was like, because I will cause a scene, and I will fucking come out there during a show, and I will fuck up everything. Like, I don't give a shit, you know.
Well, you've got the Irish enthusiasm, and you were also in the military. What branch were you in, and when was this?
I was in the reserves, man. I don't consider myself like the only regular Army shit I did was like I did my basic training and my AIT and my MOS, like my job. I make a joke about this in my set. I was Air Defense Artillery, and the only reason I chose that job is because Iraq doesn't have an Air Force. And I was like, that's a fucking, you know. I was like, you just got me lit a completely empty sky. I was like, this shit is easy, you know. So I was like, I thought, you know, because they're like, how about infantry? I was like, how about no? You know, I was like, they're like often, you know. So I don't like that, and I even say that on stage when I talk about going into the military. I'm like, do not shake my hand, do not say thank you for your service, because I didn't do shit. I was like, save that handshake for somebody who went overseas and actually did some shit. Like, I didn't do, like, I don't even claim any like veterans benefits or anything. Like, I don't want, like, I probably could if I like filled out the paperwork and shit, but I don't consider myself. The only reason I joined the military is because my grandmother was having financial problems, and they give you a signing bonus. So that's the only, like, I know some people join for super patriotic reasons. I joined because I was broke. My grandmother was having problems, and that's it. And I just started comedy, and I still didn't know I was going to be able to do this for a living yet. So I was just I was a kid, you know. I was still like 20, 21 years old, I think, at the time. So yeah, I didn't. But it was a good experience, you know. Like, I still keep in touch with some of the guys I went through basic training with, and you know, like I got I got at least like 8 minutes of great material that I could still use today, you know. So that actually, when I got back from when I got out of basic training, I had all these new military jokes. This was like right after 9/11, so that pushed me up to like start featuring really quick, and then because I had all that extra time, and
Sure.
And that extra stage time benefited me because I was already good when I started, but that extra stage time really let me like work out. Because I mean, this is back in the dark ages of comedy when you remember, like, there was only like one open mic for the entire week, and it was on a Tuesday at Bonkers. And if you ate shit there, you have to wait a whole another week, you know. So I was just like, but after I started getting good, like I could start doing guest sets, you know, like, so I had that extra stage time even if I wasn't working, and then I could feature, and then it helped me get better quick, just because, like, you know, having that material, I think, really helped me.
Now, you spend obviously as much time as you do on the road. You've got to have some classic drunk story. I know you and I have had cocktails on several occasions, and we've just ended up laughing our asses off talking about stupid shit that's happened. Is there any one incident that you can recall that sticks out?
Okay. Well, first, I'm not even a big drinker, you know. Like we can drink. I prefer the ganja. That's like my substance of choice. But because I don't like hangovers, man. Like, I do not like them. But I'd say one of my favorite stories was so when I was talking about my buddy Luke that I was mentioned earlier, that was like the guy that I like to have with me. So back when he was managing this club in Bloomington, like my first time through there, like the week before, he had this guy named Jack Wilhite came through, and it was like standing room only. This place was so packed, and he'd never seen this guy before, and he ate shit so hard that people started filing out like 20 minutes into his set. And he was like, "Is he done?" He was like looking. He's like, "Did he get off early?" He said it looked like somebody pulled a fucking fire alarm, and that's how much he ate shit. And he was just like, "God damn it," you know. And then I come in the next week, and he doesn't know who I'm either. Like, he's just managing it, he's not booking it yet. So he was like, I don't know who the hell this guy is. And then it was like rush week for the college town, so it was like maybe 40 people in the crowd. I ended up getting a standing ovation my first time through there, and he's like, "We're hanging out for the rest of the week." So we ended up becoming like great friends, and we hit it off that weekend. So the following year I come back, and then he picks me up, and he's like, "Dude, I got a great weekend planned for you." And then so we partied like nonstop the entire weekend. And then the following week, I got to go to Springfield. I got to do radio. Dude, I think out of the entire week, I may have had like 6 hours of sleep out of like the 5 fucking days there. And he's like, we gotta get you to radio. in Springfield, which is like 2 hours away from Bloomington. And I just remember driving in this big, like, fucking metal 1970s car that he had. This thing is massive. And then we're driving. I'm like dozing off, and I come to consciousness, and we're on the side of the road. I look over to the driver's seat. Luke is gone. He's not even in the car. I'm like, so I'm just sitting in this car by myself. I'm like, what the fuck? And I look out the window, and then I see Luke projectile vomiting, like, just like, oh, his hands are on his knees. He's like, and just like, I mean, it's like, it looked like a fucking Family Guy episode. He's just throwing up. His face is beet red, and he's just like, I'm like, oh my God, is he dying? And he's just like, I mean, there's for probably at least a solid 90 seconds straight of nonsense. I'm like, he can't even breathe. He's throwing up so much. And and I'm like, I got one eye open. I'm looking out the window, and then we make eye contact, and he just wipes his face, and he goes, and then he comes back in the car, and he fucking like, and then we just make the rest of, like, I had to be a radio. This is like 5:30 in the morning, and I had to be a radio at like 7, so we had to like drive out there. And it was just like one of my favorite times. Like, there's pictures of me still. I was like 26 years old. My hair's all fucked up in this radio interview, and but we made it, and it was just like, and I was just, this guy's like one of my best friends, man. Like, I love this dude to death, but that's like one of my favorite stories. Like, just I was partying the entire week. Like, we shouldn't have been conscious at that time.
Well, now you are, like I said, you're constantly in a different city every night, and you're funny. You're a good looking guy. I'm not hitting on you, but you're an attractive man. Now there's got to be some good story about some whack job fan that was following you around, or did like showed up at the gig the next night in the next town, hopped on your Facebook page, found out where you were going to be. There's got to be some good stalker story that you've got.
There was, I'd say there was this one girl. She was like in Indiana, and then like, we were having fun with, like, we hooked up or whatever. And then like we just had a weekend, like we just like spent the weekend together. And then she's like, so what do you think about, relocating to Indiana? Like, talking about me moving to Indiana. And I'm like, no. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And then she goes, well, what if I just if I move to Florida? I'm like, that's even more insane. I was like, nobody. I'm the only person you would know in Florida. You'd be leaving your entire family and this and that. And like, I had to like talk logic into her. Like, I'm like, are you insane? And then like, yeah, so that became a thing. Like, she was like trying to, like, after one weekend together, like, she was like, oh, let's talk long term. I'm like, no.
So did she end up following you to the next city?
She didn't follow me to the next city. Like I said, she was in Indiana, but she was just like, she couldn't understand why I wouldn't want to move to Indiana, or like she thought it would, like, or why I thought it was a bad idea for her to pick up her entire life and move to Florida. And even if you move to Florida, I'm not even in Florida, but maybe 2 months out of the year anyway.
Right.
So I was like, you're insane. This is insane.
Oh man. So how'd you get rid of her?
I was very blunt, I was like, just basically told her, I was like, your ideas are not good. I was like,
you treated her like you were a producer and she was in for a pitch meeting, and you went, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to run this by my team, and you're right. Your ideas here are horrible. I don't see any of these panning out at all. We've discussed it with my crew, and we're gonna go ahead and hard pass on this one. Yeah, it was just, that was like, I mean, the look of shock on my face when she was like, what do you think about moving? We spent Friday and Saturday night, and then Sunday, like, I'm about to head out. She's like, so you think, what do you think about moving to Indiana? I'm like, no, I would never. And then she's like, oh, I could come to Florida. I'm like, no. There's a buddy of mine, comic that we both know in Florida. I'm not going to mention his name, but he did a gig one time. I think it was in Georgia. And this girl literally showed up at his hotel room the next day with her suitcase. And she's like, let's go. And he was traveling with the other comedians. So he's like, I don't know what. Holy shit. So she gets in the car with them, and they get they're still in town. So they drive to the outskirts of town, and they're like, oh, I got to get some gas. And she goes, yeah, I got to get some cigarettes and, a Diet Coke or whatever. So she goes, and they didn't have to stop for gas at all. She gets out of the car, goes inside the store, and they pulled her suitcases and all her stuff out and left it by the gas pump and took off. And this is a long time ago. This is pre cell phone, pre social media. So it's not like she's going to, follow you on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and then start stalking you. So yeah, that was I know that was the best Klinger episode story that I can ever recall hearing, where she literally showed up at their hotel with her suitcases.
Do you know Andrew Norelli?
Yeah.
Oh, he has one of my favorite jokes about being like too clingy. He goes, yeah, I was talking to a buddy of mine. He's like, yeah, I'm trying to get a hold of this girl. I've texted her 7 or 8 times and she hasn't responded. He goes, oh, why don't you text her 18 or 19 more times and see what happens? He goes, oh, maybe she's just being hard to get. He goes, no, you're being hard to ignore. That's one of the favorites. You're playing hard to ignore. She's playing hard to get. No, you're playing hard to ignore.
He's a funny dude.
Great. I was just like always. I've worked with him a couple of times and just totally impressed. Like, he's another guy. Like, if I could get this tour idea going, he is absolutely somebody that I would love to like have on the tour, give a month of work, and like that's my dream, is to write $25,000 checks to like hardworking comedians. Like, I always talk about comedy. I was like, comedy is a lot like kung fu. It is what it is, but there's so many different styles. Like, one person can be like, well, I like Chris Rock, and another person could be like, well, I like Mitch Hedberg. And that's like saying, I don't know if this dude's Tiger Claw can handle this guy's Drunken Monkey style, but it doesn't matter which one you think is better, because they're both deadly in the hands of a master. You see what I'm saying? So, and there's so many, right? And there's so many unknown masses out there that are like, that haven't been discovered yet. And we all, and like as comics, we have to like, kowtow to these, these gatekeepers or producers and shit. And it's just like, meanwhile, we can do our own thing. Like, we can like create something, we can show off our own kung fu the way we want to. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and everything is so subjective too. I mean, I've seen, musicians in some bars in Chicago at these little blues clubs, and I mean, just phenomenal players. And you go, how is this person not selling out a stadium?
Right.
And Taylor Swift is.
Yeah. Everything
so I mean, there's so many funny comics out there that, and like you said, everybody's got their own taste. Everybody has their own preference. Some people love Chris Rock, some people hate him, some people love Chappelle, hate him. Bill Burr, same situation. I mean, how do you write?
Oh, I don't. So I've always been weird about. I don't ever write anything down. I just call it my radar. Like, my brain like obsesses over things. So if I find something that's like funny to me, like I can't stop thinking about it. So I'll be driving, and if I have a concept or a premise, I'll sit there and talk about it like as if I'm like doing it on stage. That way I can act, because I do a lot of like facial expressions, voices. So I want to be able to like, I got to hear it. So like I'll sit there and say to myself, and like if you were to look over at me like, oh, that guy's like singing along to a song or something, but I'm actually like working out my material, or like I have an idea or a concept, like for instance, like some of the stuff I wrote during the pandemic. And that was another thing too, is like writing the pandemic material. It's like, well, how much do people really want to talk or hear about this shit? We have been living through it. So the way I opened with it is I was like, yeah, 2020 was a rough year. I was like, but you know what? Anytime I started feeling like 2020 was being really rough or overwhelming, or I was getting depressed, I was like, you know what I would like to do? I would just hop on Facebook, and then I start looking up all my friends that have kids, and I'd feel better about myself almost instantaneously. It was just like not having children during this whole thing, like just eating cereal and smoking weed at the like. And I read one of my, and then I read one of my buddy's posts. This is a real post that he has 3 children, and he posted on Facebook. He's like, why is it that teachers aren't getting paid 6 figures a year? This is some bullshit. I want to fight these kids. I'm talking about dip my fists in glass and fight these little motherfuckers. I'm like, dude, that is such a fun. That's like week 2 of quarantine. He's like already losing his shit. You know what I'm saying? So I just think like going that route, because people with kids, they like hearing, they're like, yeah, we do have a little rough. And then people without kids are like, thank God, you are right. Like this shit. I'm like, we all ate a shit sandwich in 2020, but you parents, yours was double decker easily. Like that was like a fucking, what a nightmare, So that's the way
and especially you had to turn around and get, if you had a 2 both parents are working. Somebody needs to, now you got to pony up for childcare because your kid's got to be homeschooled, right. or one of the parents has to quit their job or take reduced hours to come back and make sure that little prick doesn't set your place on fire.
yeah, man. You know, and that's if you just have one kid. Like, and then, like, there's there's parents that have like a teenager, one that's in elementary school, and then like a toddler. So you have like one in different sections of their life. And I can't even imagine. I said, like, as soon as I started reading my friends' posts that have kids, I was like, you can see like how stressed, much like extra stressed and miserable they are. You know, I couldn't do it. I don't know how they dealt with it.
It's insane. Well, I want to talk about your the second car that you had, not the one that I signed, but the one that was before that. You had your story of how that wrecked was in Canada, wasn't it?
No. It was in Iowa, and actually my buddy Luke. I was crashing with my buddy Luke, and I was like, all right, man, I was gonna go work the loony bin.
Right.
I left his house, and then like on my way out there, like it was foggy, and then I hit like a deer jumped out, and I tried to avoid the deer, and I hit an embankment, and I rolled the car. I woke up like I had a massive concussion, like I was like throwing up, and like it was bad. So I ended up I was gone for like almost 3 hours. So when I came to consciousness, like everything was dark. I was trying to find my phone, and I couldn't find my phone, so I had to find a lighter so I could see, and I was using a lighter to look for my phone. And then finally, my phone wasn't even in the car. It was like it got tossed outside of the car. So it took me like an hour and a half to even find my phone. And then I found my phone. The battery's dying, and I'm like, dude, you gotta come get me. I'm all fucked up. He's like, what state are you in? I'm like, I'm up the road. He was like, what? He's like, you've been gone for 3 hours. I thought you were in like Nebraska or some shit by now. It's like, no. Like, so I gave him the road. He comes and gets me, cleans up this entire, like, if I can make a trophy for a super friend of the year, it'd be this fucking guy. Like, cleans everything up, and then like, you know, takes care of me, gets me back to the house. Like, I mean, I would have been totally fucked if it weren't for that guy, man. Like, I mean, just an awesome friend.
Yeah, I don't know why I thought that happened in Canada. I guess it was the deer. I don't know why. I just think that
I did have to sneak into Canada twice to go do shows because they wouldn't let me in. So I had to, like,
that's what it was. I remember you and I were having a couple beers here in town. This has got to be like a couple years ago, and you were telling us this story. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
You, me and Dave Landau were hanging out, and you had to sneak into Canada. That's why I was confusing these two. Okay.
So back when I was like 23, 24, I was coming home from a show. I was in Orlando. It was like 2:30 in the morning, and I just gotten a ticket like 2 weeks before, so I was already like trying to catch up with that thing. And then I'm going like 10 miles an hour, the speed limit, and I'm driving up the road. The cop turns his lights on, but they're way far behind me, right? So like it wasn't a high-speed chase or anything. I just turned into this neighborhood. As soon as I turned in the neighborhood, there was like a driveway. It was like open right there. I was like, oh, perfect. So I pull up to this driveway, and I put the car up, and the cop goes right by me. And I'm looking, I'm doing my little victory dance. You know, I'm like, okay, I'm in the clear. The car's in neutral. So it starts sliding back down the driveway, and I had to hit the brakes. The brake lights are like, here he is. So the cop's like, arr! And he comes pulling back up, and I'm like, yeah, exactly. I'm like, fuck. So the cop comes to the window, and I just been doing comedy. I'm a little cocky, you know. I'm like, oh, I'll crack a joke, and I'll lighten the mood. He goes, what the fuck are you doing? I'm like, now I count, and you go hide. And he was like, get the hell out of the car, and I got arrested. No sense of humor. That was the last time I ever fucking tried to make a joke to a cop ever, because I got arrested for eluding the police. I got put on probation for 2 years, and then 10 years later, now I'm trying to get into Canada, and I love Canada, like, but whatever assholes live in that country, they put them all at the border. I think that's like where you're supposed to be at. You know, they're like, this woman was horrible. She was like, you have a criminal record. I'm like, that was like 10 years ago. I just went like, I'm like, Justin Bieber could come over here and drag race, do drugs, be a complete asshole, but I can't come over here and tell jokes for 48 hours and leave. You know, so she was an asshole. She was like, no, you need to get the court to fax over this document and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, from Florida? I'm like, that's 3 hours ahead. I was like, just nothing. The courts are closed. She goes, not my problem. And then, and so I called the booker, who's also a comic, who's also hosting the show. I'm like, hey man, we got a problem. I was like, they're not letting me in. He was like, oh, don't sweat it. Just go down Just go down the road about 20 minutes. There's another port there. Try to get
Now, where
into
was
there.
this at?
I'm trying to get into Vancouver. I was doing laugh lines in Vancouver. Okay. So I'm like, don't they got the internet? Like, aren't they gonna know that I was just at this other place? He's like, no, you're fine. He's like, just go down here. So fast forward, this other border bitch makes me take off my shoes and my belt. I have to empty my pockets. And then she chastises me like a fucking asshole. Like, you know what you're doing is port hopping and just making me feel like a complete piece of shit. And then I have to sign a paper. I, Patrick Garrity, acknowledge I'm a piece of shit and don't belong in Canada and blah, blah, blah. And then so now I'm like, I call him back. I'm like, strike two. I was like, any other ideas? He's like, now he's panicking. He's like, oh God, they're not letting you in again. He's like, I gotta find a replacement. And even after I cross the border, it's still an hour drive for me to get to Vancouver. I'm like, dude, give me a half hour because it's like 6:30. You know, like it's like I gotta figure this out. I was like, give me a half hour. He's like, well, see what you can figure out, man. But I gotta do what I gotta do on my end. I'm like, all right. So now I'm just driving. You know, it's all farmland, and there's like, you know, there's just trees and there's roads. I'm like, there's Canada's got to be around here somewhere. So I'm driving. Then I find this little casino, and it wraps around, and there's two roads. One's America and one's Canada, and the only thing separating is a ditch. And at the time, I'm driving a 96 Toyota Camry. You know, so I'm like, I come through, and I'm like, okay.
Those cars are known for their off-road ability.
No, they're not. So And then the ditch is steeper in certain parts than the other. So I got to hit that fucker just right. Cause if I now I'm stuck if I fuck it up, and they're like, well, what happened? I'm like, now I have two pieces of paper that say I just got kicked out of the country sitting in the passenger seat. So I'm just like, so finally I'm just like, do or die. I'm panicking, like my heart's pounding. I have like $80 in my bank account. This is like $1,000 gig, you know, and this is back when like the economy was doing so shitty that America was like parallel with Canada. And it was like, now if you get $1 in Canada, it's only worth 70 cents over here. You know what I'm saying? So I jumped the ditch and I fishtail it, and then I'm like going around, and literally the port that just kicked me out is in my rearview mirror. And like the closest thing I can compare it to is like, have you ever seen Breaking Bad?
Yeah.
Okay. Season 1, where he goes and gets his money from Tuco, and he like does that explosion, and he comes out with the sacks of money, and then he gets in the car and he starts screaming, and he's like punching the roof and shit. That's like how I was like, I was fucking like just the most exhilarating. I called a booker. I'm like, I'm on my way. He was like, shut the fuck up. He's like, how did you? I was like, I go, this call's costing me like $5 a minute, dude. I'll let you know when I get there, but I'm on my way. And I made it to the gig, and it was like one of the most exhilarating, like. And then I remember getting back into America, and I called my dad up, and I'm like, hey, Pop, he goes, how did the shows go this week? And I'm like, they wouldn't let me in. He goes, what? I was like, yeah, they wouldn't let me go because when I got for eluding the police 10 years ago, they wouldn't let me in the border. He goes, what'd you do? And I go, I jumped that fucking ditch, and I got to the show. And he goes, yeah, buddy. Like I just scored a touchdown, and the fucking my dad was like so pumped. He goes, his exact words. He goes, way to be a Garrity. He's like 99% of the population would have just tucked their fucking tail between their legs and gone the other way. He's like, way to fucking go get what you need. And I was like, you know, it was either going to be like a story either way. This is either going to how I got kicked out of Canada and arrested, or this is how I snuck into Canada. So luckily it's how I snuck into Canada story. I mean, so it's like,
you know, the only funny Canada story I had crossing the border was in Windsor when I was living in Detroit at the time. And I was crossing the border to go into Windsor, and I was working a comedy club over there. And, you know, so I go through, and, you know, they're like, you know, ask for your license. This was, you know, this is pre 9/11. So I didn't have to deal with a passport or anything like that. So the guy's sitting there, and it's the border, and it's the Windsor border, which is, I mean, there's got to be like at least 10 of these booths checking people in. All these people coming in from Michigan. And so I get there, and they said, you know, state your, you know, business while you're here. And I said, well, I'm a comedian. I'm working over at such and such club. And the guy was super, super nice, because normally you don't want to tell them that you're working there because they're going to want papers and all this other stuff. And it's a huge ordeal. And I just say, you know what? Fuck it. I'll tell the guy the truth. So I'm talking to the guy, and we're shooting the shit. And he's like, well, I always thought about doing comedy. Now, mind you, this is like a Friday night. So now we're just having a conversation, like he and I are sitting there at the bar having a couple of, you know, Molsons. Right. And The line's backing up. I mean, I'm looking in my rearview mirror and all I see are headlights behind me. And the guy goes, he goes, I appreciate that you came here and you just said that you were coming to work here in our country. He goes, I appreciate you telling the truth. He goes, mostly people come here and, I know they're here for a reason other than what they're saying. They say they're coming here to the casinos or they're coming to the strip club, but I appreciate your honesty. He goes, I'd rather have somebody come here and come up with a unique excuse why they're coming to Canada. It's like, why are you coming here? I'm coming here to fuck my wife. And no, he says, I'd rather have you come here and say, you're coming here to fuck my wife. And I'm cracking up and I go, so he just starts talking comedy some more. And I'm looking and the line's getting longer and longer. And I go, I don't want to be rude, but there's a lot of people behind me. He goes, what are they going to do? Fucking honk? I mean, he's right. I mean, you're not going to get a honk at the border. I mean, you're not going to get anywhere. So I get into Canada. Fast forward the next night, I go through. Sure enough, I pull up. This guy, it's a different booth, but this guy's working there. So I pull up, and the guy's like, citizenship and state your business. I said, from the United States, I'm here to fuck your wife. And he just turns and looks at me and busts out laughing. He goes, get the fuck out of here and have a good show.
Dude, where was that guy when I was trying to cross the fucking
I know, right? Exactly.
Oh my God.
So insane, dude. Oh, man, that's
such a great story. That's such a great story. It would have been even better if he came to your show. That would have been awesome. He was like, where are you working? I'm going to come. Like, he came to check you out.
Yeah, it was so funny, just so surreal having this conversation with this guy who just could care less about anybody trying to get back into Canada or get into Canada behind me in line. There had to be, looked like 30, 40 cars. So they came in through the tunnel going from Detroit to Windsor.
Right.
And I mean, and all I see are just headlights behind me. I mean, no one's moving. Every other line is moving. Every other line's moving just fine. This guy's just sitting here shooting the shit, which was hysterical.
So that's awesome, man. I love Canadians, man. I really did. They're such good people, man.
Well, you are hands down one of the funniest people that I've ever had a chance to know and work with. And you're not only a hilarious comedian, but you're also one of the most solid human beings that I've ever come across. And I appreciate you. And I'm so happy that you're back on the road doing this. And anybody that gets a chance to come and see Patrick Garrity, find him online. Go to Patreon and donate to Patrick Garrity, Garrity.
Subscribe.
Subscribe.
Yeah. Donate makes me feel like I'm some fucking piece of shit. Like,
no. That was my bad. Subscribe to Patreon for the Never Ending Tour with Patrick Garrity. I love the idea, my friend, and wish you nothing but the best, brother.
Thank you so much. Dude, I had such a blast on your podcast, man. I'll come back anytime, bro. Thank you so much for having me.
You're the best, man. We will absolutely do this again. You're fantastic, bro.
Thanks for listening to A Drink with Derek. Find out when Derek is appearing near you by checking out DerekRichards.com. See you next time for A Drink with Derek.